Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, focused on how to successfully navigate reporting season and deliver the quickest possible turnaround for carbon reporting. I'm Michael Crean, and I'm the Marketing Content Manager here at Normative, and I'll be hosting today's session. Delighted to have you join, and we're looking forward to getting stuck into the webinar. Before we do, some minor bits of housekeeping. So we're going to be running for 45 minutes today. This webinar will be recorded, so you will receive this after we close off today's live session. Please also do submit questions. You will see the questions button in the bottom right corner of your screen. We'll collect them through the course of the webinar and run a Q&A session at the end. If there are any that we can't get to, we'll try and follow up with you after the webinar as well. And one small ask, if you could please stay on the webinar for a minute after we finish today's session, we'd really appreciate it if you fill out a quick survey for us, just to make sure we can make these webinars as valuable as possible for you all. So on to our speakers today. Firstly, we have Dimitri Stoidis, who is our Associate Climate Strategy Advisor at Normative. And Dimitri is joined by Taylor Seidel from our product marketing team here at Normative. So they are going to guide you through everything you need to know to get all your ducks in a row for reporting season. So before we get to Dimitri and Taylor, I'll just run you through the agenda quickly. First of all, I'm going to give you a very quick overview about Normative, who we are, and our mission. Taylor will then kick off by taking you through the carbon accounting landscape based on a recent study we conducted, looking into the big challenges out there that your peers are facing. Then Dimitri will take us through a quick guide to quick carbon reporting turnaround. So giving you everything you need to know from start to finish to deliver for your deadlines. We will end with Taylor running through a few key product capabilities that will help you deliver against these timelines. And then we will have the Q&A session at the end. So without further ado, about Normative, our vision is to make known and reduce the sustainability impact. Make known and reduce the sustainability impact of all economic activity on the planet. My vision is that I click on the right slide to take you through today. So a bit of a background to that and who we are. We have Nordic roots, so founded and headquartered in Stockholm with offices in Copenhagen and London. We have scientific outreach at our core. So we founded international climate groups and collaborate with many more. And we have extensive enterprise experience from the top of our company all the way through every department. So at the core of everything we're trying to do is to make carbon visible. We strongly believe that when you can see carbon, you can reduce it and lead to net zero. So how do we actually do that? It's based on three core tenets. Our approach is focused, one, on scientific integrity. So that foundation of science, our founder, Christian Rönn, was involved at Oxford, a researcher at Oxford. There's connections across the UN, the EU, and leaders in climate policy. Every Normative customer is also supported with a climate strategy advisor, Dimitri being a fantastic example of that on the webinar today. So that makes sure that we, when you're navigating the industry requirements, analysing your emissions or designing reduction initiatives, we make it straightforward for you and you have all the support you need. Number two is responsive insight. So most literally, we make carbon visible through carbon calculations, and our insights are based on a vast selection of detailed emissions factors, transparent calculation methodology, and brought to life with customizable dashboards. These are responsive, so you can slice and dice the data to see exactly where emissions are coming from and where you need to act. And finally, number three, we have continuous collaboration. So when carbon is visible, it can be used by many, many parts of your organization. So Normative makes it possible to connect your organization, whether that be procurement or finance, for example, with the right carbon data. And on the other side of things, you can decentralize data collection from various teams and your entire supply chain with automated collection. So everyone can join the process, everyone can learn, and everyone can see carbon. And these are just a few of the global companies, the customers that we are very proud to do exactly this for. Check out our website to see exactly how we are working with some of these customers in even more detail. There's some fantastic stories up there as well. So that rounds it off for the introduction. As I said at the top in the agenda, Taylor is now going to step in and take you through what the carbon accounting landscape looks for you and your peers today. So without further ado, Taylor, I will hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Mike. As I was introduced at the beginning, my name is Taylor. I'm on the product marketing team here at Normative. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington. I have a general background in startup and marketing and communications. I've now been in Copenhagen for the last 3 years and at Normative for 2. So it's been a really fun journey. And the way that I always describe my role in product marketing is deeply understanding our product, understanding what we do as a carbon accounting product, but also understanding our customers, understanding our audience and the people that use carbon accounting. And it's my role to bridge those two things, bring those things together. And part of understanding our audience and being able to tell our story in a way that resonates is with a lot of background research. And that's where I'm going to start from today. So we launched this report at the end of 2023. It's called the Carbon Accountability Report. We hope to do this annually to really track trends over time. What we did was partner with an agency called Harris X, who's based in London, and they interviewed and surveyed about 200 what we called sustainability decision makers as part of the research, and did deeper dive interviews with about 8. And so between all of those, looking at people at companies larger than 2,000 employees all over Europe and the UK, we really wanted to understand what is the lay of the land? How are people thinking about carbon accounting in 2023? And there were some really interesting findings in the report, and there should be a link popping up if you want to download and get the whole breadth of the report. But there were 3 that I thought were really pertinent for the webinar today. 96% of our respondents stated that their company had a formal carbon accounting commitment, that they were committed to doing this process. And I think that is really dramatic that it's such an overwhelming majority of people have this commitment to carbon accounting. But it goes beyond a commitment, because we know that 84% of our respondents said that they regularly or occasionally use the carbon emissions data in their business decision making. So it's not just a claim, it's not just for show, but it's actual data that they want to use to build their strategy. And then beyond that, beyond just figuring out the carbon accounting landscape, they know that it's going to impact their business reputation. So 54% said that reducing environmental impact is a key factor for shaping their business's reputation in the future. And I think that that is really powerful, that we go from commitment all the way through to this recognition that reduction is important and it's going to be a differentiator. And I think at Normative, we talk about the pressures on businesses in 2 ways, talking a lot about the impacts from consumers, but also from governments and regulators. And both of these are changing, which is why it's hard. Disclosure sometimes feels like you're running to keep up with this constantly changing landscape. From a consumer perspective, I think that we all individually have the experience that we're looking more into recycling. We're researching electric cars. We are a little more skeptical of the green claims that we see businesses making. And I think these are 3 pretty impactful statistics that we pulled from all over the internet. We know that 70% or more of consumers would pay an additional 5% for a green product. We know that 2 out of 3 employees are more likely to work for a company with a strong environmental policy. And we know that 10% of investors are willing to pay 10% more for a company with a positive ESG record. And again, I think that this is kind of this bottom-up pressure that businesses are experiencing, coming from the people that are actually buying with their product or engaging with them. But then, of course, we have the disclosure landscape itself. And we have this alphabet soup of regulations from all over the world. It's definitely hard to keep track of all of them. I think that the 3 that are most relevant to keep in mind for for the businesses in Europe and the United States are the kind of three categories that we have here. In looking at all of them together, the theme here is that there is more breadth and there is more depth. Breadth meaning that more and more businesses are going to be required to report, and depth meaning that they will be required to report more and more categories. When we look at CSRD and SFDR, those are, of course, the regulations that are now implemented in the EU. It's not only businesses based in the EU, but also businesses operating in the EU. So we know that it's over 50,000 businesses. It's a huge, huge scope. There is also SDR and SECR coming from the UK. And the UK is super interesting because it has this increased focus on green claims, that green claims need a lot of robust proof in order to withstand the view from the regulators to make sure that they're correct. And then, of course, I'm from the US. The California bill is something that's super close to my heart. We often say in the States, as California goes, so goes the country. California is seen as this kind of lighthouse state. And it's really exciting that California has taken this really unprecedented step of making Scope 3 emission disclosures mandatory for companies that operate in California. The SEC proposal is a little bit behind California, but I think that the momentum is there. The next slide here is from our report. So these are the challenges reported by the sustainability decision makers who are doing their carbon accounting, probably very similar to all the people in our audience today. And there's a bunch of reasons that they shared, but I think the ones that are most relevant for today are the inconsistent data collection methods, and also kind of paired with that, the lack of standardized emission calculation methods. Both of those come back to the greenhouse gas protocol, that we want all of the reporting, all of the calculation to align with a standardized methodology. And that's way easier said than done, considering the breadth of suppliers and service providers that the modern business has, who are all over the world and using many different calculation methodologies. The next two are also very, very similar. Inaccurate data collection, meaning data might be coming in, but the quality isn't good enough to actually have a meaningful calculation. Or incomplete data collection, which I think is something that many businesses struggle with, that they might do a quick preliminary calculation and say, our emissions are actually looking pretty good, only to realize that they missed 40, 50, 60% of their total emissions from the data that they weren't able to collect on time. And these three themes, Dimitris will talk a bit more about in the following section. And of course, with those challenges in mind, there are risks when the reporting is not successful. There's, of course, financial risk, which is fines from regulators, as well as lost revenue when your business is disqualified from, let's say, a government RFP. There's also the legal risk that when you're not compliant, your business is automatically exposed to a lot more legal risk and lawsuits. And then, as we've been talking about with the consumer expectations, there's that reputational risk. And I think that we've all seen so many businesses in the headlines because they've been accused of greenwashing. And that is kind of the immense risk to your reputation. That's hard to put numbers on it, but it's really, really impactful for how consumers who are increasingly literate in how to examine green claims, how they think about the products that they buy. And I want to just leave you with one really big statistic from our research, which was that 48% of businesses we surveyed found it challenging to meet regulatory and compliance requirements. So I think that this is super powerful, because we saw at the beginning 96% said that they were committed to the process, and yet 48% of those same group of people said that they found it challenging to meet the regulatory requirements. And so I think that if anything, I want you to take away that you're not alone. There are so many people in the same position who are trying to do this at the best they can. And with that, I would love to transition to my colleague, Dimitris. And we've decided to do it in a bit new way today. We're going to do a bit of a thought experiment and walk you through what a onboarding would look like at Normative. And through the process, what we hope to show is how at every step of the process of carbon calculation, there's things that you can do, there's best practices to make sure that things are happening as smooth as possible so that you can report really fast, but you can also be really confident in the completeness and the quality of your calculations. So without further ado, I will hand off to Dimitri and go from there.
Amazing. And let's start onboarding and by welcoming Michael from XYZ Ltd. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Dimitri. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. As you know, I'll be your dedicated climate strategy advisor. What it means is I will support you to understand first your emissions, support you with the whole data gathering and calculations, and finally how we could take data-driven decisions afterwards when it comes to target setting, reductions, or any other regulatory compliance.
Fantastic. Absolutely, yeah. Let's jump in.
Perfect. Then let's start, of course, with an agenda. So following from our business kickoff earlier in the handover from sales, this meeting is an opportunity to learn more first about your company, present Normative's also capabilities and the methodology to support you to calculate your emissions within those 30 days, because we have a quite tight deadline, as I'm aware. From there, we're going to do by defining organizational boundaries together and decide which scopes and categories are applicable specifically to your company and your business. From there, within those areas, we can deep dive on the data gathering tools and explain how each one can support you on calculating your emissions within those 30 days, always according to the greenhouse gas protocol. And finally, we're going to showcase some project management practices that we can follow in order to be able to hit our targets. So my aim is by the end of this workshop, you'll be fully up and running with Normative. You will be aware of the best practice around carbon accounting. You should feel hopefully comfortable navigating and knowing the full potential and limitation of calculating emissions within 30 days. So how does that sound? Is there anything else you'd like to cover?
No, that sounds perfect. Thank you, Dimitri.
Perfect. First, let me start with a methodology. Everything we do here in Normative is based on the greenhouse gas protocol, which lays the foundation for methodology. The greenhouse gas protocol is used worldwide as a golden standard of carbon accounting, and some of the frameworks has been used like CDP, TCFD, science-based targets, among others. And as we said, when it comes to risk, it's important to use a robust methodology that is based on science. And you can find more information about our methodology in this white paper. Afterwards, we're going to send you the presentation. You'll be able to access the hyperlink as well, but also it's available on your screens. Now that we know about the methodology, I would love to take some time to understand more about yourself. Again, I get all this information from our sales. I caught me up with the conversations we had together, also with research I've done on my own for your company. But here's a quick recap. I'd love to understand from you, is that correct? Is there anything else you'd like to add, Michael?
No, that's absolutely spot on. We are just over 1,300 employees, and as you can see, we're spread across a number of different locations, 12 specifically. So there come certain challenges with that and tracking emissions across different sites. And as you said at the beginning, we are under time pressure. We have deadlines for end of Feb to report internally, to report to our investors at the beginning of March, and then to comply with SECR as well. So we need to get moving and get moving quickly. So I'm hoping we can just go through and really clarify for me what I need to focus on, what I need to make sure happens within our organization to make sure that we hit those deadlines.
Perfect. So first of all, thank you for make sure that we have all the right information for yourself and your company. And something which is really important to align on the get-go is when dealing with a tight deadline like the one we have right now, which is 30 days, we need to ensure all the right stakeholders from XYZ Ltd side are involved. And in the beginning, especially, these individuals are vital when it comes to supporting you from your side with data collections. And from my experience with other clients, those roles are typically filled by financial representatives, where they'll be able to give us extracts with financial data like transactions and other data we need for your reporting of 2023 calendar year from your general ledgers. So that's first one important is make sure you have all the right stakeholders involved in the get-go to support you. Now, once we have this data and once we have those representatives, we can also go into exactly what type of data we need. That's always really important. In here, as you can see on the left side, we can have a variety of data we can use. We can use spend data. Spend data, as I said, is transactions, things like from your general ledger categories that we can be able to put the right emission factors. Then we have activity data. Activity data is of a higher accuracy than spend. Spend is always the base in terms of like level of accuracy you can imagine, especially with inflation. And active data can be things like the kilowatt hour consumption for your buildings, or it can be the distance travel or the fuel use for business travel, or it can be product specific carbon footprints you might have for any goods you might have purchased. So it can be a variety of different data depending on what type of action and activity we're talking about. But you can also get supply specific data by engaging your suppliers. Now, again, variety of different data. From there, we'll be able to put a right conventional factor, make sure that everything's under the same unit, put the right emission factor, and finally, as a result of that, we'll be able to calculate your emission specific for the activity. And of course, from there, you can take a lot of different actions, right? For one of them is to report to your investors, but also internally for SCCR, like regulatory compliance, but also set targets, reductions, and many more. Something important here to mention is, particularly with our constrained timeline, is what type of data we should use. So initially, I would suggest that we use more readily available data that you have already in your systems, right? That might be spent, right? So prioritize spent initially, it's okay. And then strategically, after that first reporting, we can move and switch to activity data, wherever is available, and pinpoint high impact areas. But also we can implement the right processing from your side, to be able to gather data, so it might be easier when you do reporting next year, or if you want to increase your frequency of your reporting. Sounds good?
Got it. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Perfect. Now, we talk about the type of data we can use, but let's see exactly what is applicable for your company, right? As we know, we have the greenhouse gas protocol breaks down emissions in 3 different scopes. Scope 1 could be emissions on your direct control, like your company vehicles that you have own right now. And here, the type of data we can use is we can use cost. Again, that could be our base, right? We can start from there, but also you can have other data available like kilometers, liters of fuel, or kilowatt hours for your hybrid or electric vehicles. From there, for your scope 2, which is electricity and heating for your buildings and your facilities you might own, from there, typically the kilowatt hour consumption is something that is most available for clients. So we might be able to use this, but alternatively, if that's not available, you can also use area of your office, right, the square meters, or also the cost. So there are a few different ways we can tackle this. And finally, of course, scope 3 is where the majority of your emissions will come from. I wouldn't be surprised if more than 90% of your emissions will come from scope 3, which is emission from your value chain. Here we have upstream and downstream. Upstream is emission comes from you buying goods and services to provide your service to your clients. And then downstream is emissions that comes after you provide your good to your clients. Because you're a software-based company, majority of your emissions will come upstream. So we're going to see upstream right now. And here, as you can see, we have a few different categories. As you can see, majority of them are based on spend. We can do that based on your general ledgers and your spend base, and from there switch to other data to increase granularity, for example, greenhouse gas specific or weight of the goods, travel for the transportation, and many more. You see also some of them have red, like waste generating operations and employee commuting are areas which will be applicable for you, but you might not have the capacity at this point in time, you don't track it already, to collect data in those 30 days, right? So it is okay to just say, like, when you report, it'd be like, look, employee commuting is no major source of our emissions, and I'm able to calculate in the next reporting cycle. Again, because we are in quite tight deadline, as you can imagine, that collecting those data can be quite consuming, and I don't want to overwhelm you either.
Got it. No, I understand that and appreciate that.
Perfect. So now that we know what your inventory look like, we can go into the type of gathering tools we can utilize, right? As you can imagine, we have a variety of different tools. We have templates for each of the different scopes and categories that can input your data, right? For example, for scope 2, you can input where's your location, what type of kilowatt hour consumption you have. But also we can utilize exports, right? If you already have systems that track this, for example, your transaction, you can extract of your system, and we can utilize that. But also alternative, we can also use APIs, which basically connects between our systems to make it much more seamlessly the entire process.
I mean, APIs seem like they'd be the most efficient option there. Is that possible for us to use them?
Yeah, APIs are indeed a powerful resource. It provides opportunity to save time, and it has your reporting frequency, right? If you want to do like more than once a year, right? To do bi-yearly or quarterly, whatever you see fit. But because of the quite tight deadline of 30 days, that might not be the most optimal way, because you can imagine setting up APIs can be quite time consuming. So what we suggest is initially we can use the other like exports or our templates to calculate your emissions. And after we finish this, we can work on setting up APIs so we can make the whole process more seamless for next reporting cycles.
Okay, makes sense. So with the exports then, how exactly does that work? Do I upload them directly to the platform, or is there a need to format them according to your templates? How does that work?
That's an excellent question, Michael. And it's almost like you have seen my presentation, because it's exactly what I'm going to cover next. So we talk about exports. And in here, you can see we have one of the tools that can provide you with a lot of support is color mapping. So rather than having to export your data and then put it on our own template, so you have to do a lot of data manipulation, especially we talk about thousands of data entries, it can be quite time consuming, but also can have errors, right? So what you can do with color mapping is you can map basically your export from your own systems to our data templates. So you don't have to spend time doing the manipulation. So you can save a lot of time in the process. Also, what we can do support you is, and especially because we talk about XYZ, comprised of 12 different entities in operating different countries. All of them have potentially our own systems and general ledgers. So it can be quite time consuming. So what we can do here is we have available is we can use, first of all, user access groups. What that means is rather than you having to go and upload everything from your own side, we can bring other individuals in the team, like you have support from each different entity to upload data into the platform. And you can be like more the project manager to be able to see, okay, they have uploaded data, or, entity X needs to upload data still. And they have, not everyone have the same access. You can see who has access. I'm sure you have concerns about data as well there. And from there, whereas also once they upload the data, you can, with the guide data correction, once they upload the data, they get instant feedback on different errors they might have on their files. So rather than for me to have come to you and then for you to go up to them to give feedback, they get feedback instantly. So from my experience, that can be quite a lot of time saving through that process.
Fantastic.
Awesome. And then, of course, as in any project, timelines are really important, right? Especially we have such a tight one, like the one for end of February. So right now we're on the onboarding or kickoff session. So the next step will, of course, be data uploading, which, depending on the appeal of the data, now it can take from a few days or a week or up to 3 months, right? It really depends on what type of data we have available. Once all the data have been uploaded to the platform, from our side, we need 2 to 3 weeks to do all the data quality checks. Again, we talked about earlier about risks. If we need to ensure that we have robust inventory in order to be able to report this with confidence into your, both internally, but also to your investors, and then afterwards to SCCR, for example. So we do quite rigorous checks. And from there, once we finish this, we're going to do go to the insights where we're going to present you all the data and what that looks like. So again, as you can imagine here, clear communication between us is essential, to see if you have any challenges or any, if you're struggling with anything, because from my side, as you take a strategy advisor, I can support you on each steps, but also you have support, like if you have any technical problems, we have a dedicated team also to support you on this as well. So if I have to recap, is 30 days is achievable to do this, but as long as we adhere to the best practices we talk about, utilizing the right tools like color mapping, exports, guide data corrections, just to be able to automate as much things as possible and save you time in the long run. And finally, of course, engagement with all the necessary stakeholders across your organization, both the financial representatives, for example, but also with user access groups, bringing more than just yourself to support you for each of the different entities. How does that sound? Is that sound good?
Yes. Yeah, I think nice and clear, and I'm clear on, certainly what I need to do for my side. So I think you will make a successful sustainability officer of me yet, Dimitri. So
perfect. And this is now the end of our real case scenario. We're back on our real roles. And if you're interested in learning more, so other ones are here with us on how we can support you, how you can work with us. I think a link will appear shortly in your screen, so you can just follow that up, and we can have a conversation. There it is. And with that being said, thank you for your time. I'll give you back to Taylor.
Hello, it is me once again. I think I get to tell you the second part of my job, which is telling the story of our product in a way that resonates. So hopefully it resonates, and I'll do my best to tell that story. As Dimitri mentioned throughout his onboarding session, we have a few new features since reporting season 2024. And in scale-up years, 2023's reporting season feels like a lifetime ago, but it is really remarkable to see everything that has happened in the past year. As Dimitri mentioned, we have new groups for data collection. And we know for our businesses, the businesses that we work with, they need to control access to data. It can't be a free-for-all. So whether that's dividing the data collection by entity or by region or by team, this user group functionality makes it really easy for businesses to maintain the security of their data and the quality. As Dimitri also mentioned, we've done a lot of great work around guided data upload. And there's been a few questions around how easy is it to upload the data, how easy it is to do this or that. And again, there's multiple ways that this data entry is designed to be really easy to use, that, as Dimitri mentioned, it will automatically map columns to the right data points. It will automatically point out places where the formatting of your data might be off. And for more categories, we are actually implementing instant calculations. So once you upload the data and you've gone through some of these kind of automated AI-guided quality checks, you will get an instant estimate. And of course, we still have our teams of data scientists who review for quality to make sure that everything is correct. But it is really magical that you can upload data and see your carbon emissions almost in real time. And last but not least, we do have a feature for one-click reporting that is specifically designed for CSRD and SCCR, but I think it's really important to mention that because our methodology is perfectly aligned with the greenhouse gas protocol, that means that for any major reporting standard, whether that's ESRS or GRI, the data will be very compatible. There are easy ways to export the data and reuse it for those reports. There are two more themes that I think are really, really relevant for today. One is continuous collection using APIs. I think it's awesome that more and more customers want to report data more frequently, because we know that these metrics, these environmental and carbon metrics, are only as meaningful as they actually reflect what your business looks like. And so if you're getting this carbon data months after the business activities happened, it's less and less functional for actually designing meaningful reduction initiatives and then measuring or verifying the impact of your reduction. So we see more and more businesses who are moving to quarterly or monthly reporting, which is made really easy because their APIs send the data through without any additional lift from the team. It minimizes the human error and means that they can report on their carbon emissions as frequently as they want. The other theme is machine learning and AI through carbon calculation, and this is one where Normative has a core value of scientific integrity, which means that we are relatively cautious with how we're implementing AI into our software. We know that it can be really powerful as a way to increase the quality of our quality checks, using it to identify the errors in the data as quickly as possible. We can also use machine learning to better pair the spend and activity data to the right emissions factor. Of course, this is a way for our scientists and their quality assurance professionals to better uncover errors in the data. But of course, we've all heard the horror stories of ChatGPT hallucinating some wild storyline, and we don't exactly want that to go into your reporting. So we are being pretty cautious about how we use generative AI, but it's definitely something that we're investing in to improve the quality and the speed. And that is it from me. I'm delighted to hand you back to Mike, who will take us through our last few steps today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, Dimitri, for that insight. I know, given it's such a busy time right now, I'm sure for everyone on this call, I think it's so valuable to get that clarity and that focus that you've both provided there. So thank you very much. We've already got lots of questions coming in. So a reminder, if you haven't added your question, you can do so in the questions tab in the bottom right of your screen here. And we'll get to as many as we can now in the next 10 minutes. And then anything we can't get to, we will get back to you after the webinar. So I will start with the questions. And first up, I'm going to hand back to you, Taylor. We have a question coming in around how do you include services like consulting, cloud service, cleaning services in the assessment? Can the normative tool include it with emission factors, or do I need to search for emission factors myself?
I think that is such a great question, Nora, and it of course depends on the service. When we talk about cloud servers, we had another question in here about cloud. Depending on what category those emissions fall in, there's absolutely industry average emissions factors that we can use. But where it gets even more exciting is when we can do what we call value chain engagement. So when you talk about a cleaning service, when you talk about consulting, let's say even the vendor that supplies the paper in your office, all of those suppliers and service providers are part of your value chain. And Normative has pioneered some features when you can actually send out surveys, you can collect emissions data from those service providers. So you can move from that industry average data to more towards very specific supplier-specific data. And we did a webinar on this, I think in September. So please do check that one out. But I think it's a really, really powerful tool in order to get start with those industry averages, but then make your way to more and more specific. Because of course, the more specific you can get to the supplier, the better positioned you are to work with the supplier. And maybe you encourage them to switch to green energy, or maybe you encourage them to change something else in their scope 1, scope 2, or scope 3 emissions, so that it will then, of course, decrease your own emissions. So that's something that we all get really excited about at Normative.
Fantastic. Thank you, Taylor. And you mentioned there was another question around cloud. So I wonder if I could just follow up with you around that as well. Is there anything extra we're able to share around the way we create reporting about cloud CO2 visibility? Is there anything else that we can share to make sure we cover off that question as well?
I think, Dimitri, you might know a bit better than me, but I know that in my experience, Azure, AWS, they are making good strides in how they report their own emissions, and we can incorporate emissions data from those cloud providers directly. So it's one of those things where they are doing a great job of measuring and providing that to their customers, and it's something that we can feed into your holistic carbon calculation, including scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3.
I think Taylor can take my job now. But yes, that's correct. For example, AWS, you can download specifically your emissions from the platform. Same thing with Google. So more and more providers are giving the opportunity, and you can put specifically those emissions into the normative platform to be able to visualize it. And again, spend is always the basis, and always you want to increase granularity. So again, that supply specific is great, wherever is applicable. And of course, wherever it's not, we can support you. That's why we have myself and my team to support you in that journey.
Great. Thank you both for handling that one. And while you're on, Dimitri, we've got a question here about downstream. So what are the challenges when collecting and integrated data for scope 3 downstream? How do you know that data given about emissions are attributable to your B2B company only and not messed up with other suppliers? If you've got an answer for that question.
Yeah, downstream category can be quite complex. That's why we didn't add it in the role playing in a way, because it can take a long time. It can be very specific on each company, right? So you can imagine the data you need for, let's say, use of some products could be very different compared to end of life treatment or some of the other, let's say, like investments. What I can say is we have data and we have support. We work with many clients with quite complex value chains, and it's more like in case by case scenario to understand what type of data is available, what process we need to set in order for you guys to, engage with your suppliers or your client, your suppliers, your customers, or if you're B2B, to collect those data. And from there, depending where it's available, we can set up a proper action plan to tackle it together. But it's hard to just give you like one, like, out of the box solution, because it's really not, right? Because depending on how you tackle it, what your supply chain looks like, can be very, very different. Most likely I haven't really satisfied the person that asked this question, but I'm just, that's why we have our support to guide you through the process.
Thank you, Dimitri. Questions coming through thick and fast. So we'll move on to our next one. And Taylor, I'll hand back over to you, if I may. Got a question coming in here around collecting data for Scope 3. So I've been working with my suppliers for a year now, collecting data for Scope 3. The inconsistent methods and lack of standards has made this incredibly difficult. Is 30 days feasible?
Claire, I think that's a great question, and I'm super excited to follow up more about value chain engagement. And this is a place where I'm super proud of our product team at Normative, and it's the reason I joined Normative is the user focus here. We know how disparate the reporting can be for those suppliers. Like every single one is probably at a different stage of their sustainability journey. Some might be doing a great calculation and have goals set, SBTI, all of the whole shebang, and others might not have started at all. And so when we approached the project of designing a tool for value chain engagement, the standardization was really important. So making sure that the fields that are submitted are super consistent when it comes to what data they're sharing with us, making sure that there aren't extraneous questions. It's really, really focused on the specific data that we need for the greenhouse gas protocol to properly calculate those supplier-specific Scope 3 emissions. And one of the things that I think is really meaningful is that the Normative value chain engagement tool, we have our business carbon calculator, which is actually a free tool designed for SME businesses, which is designed so that a business, if they haven't begun the sustainability journey, they haven't calculated before, they can use the free tool to get a pretty darn good first step. It's of course not where we would encourage them to stop. We would say, use this as your first step and go beyond. But for your purposes, you can reach your entire long tail of suppliers, from the biggest who've probably done great carbon reporting all the way through to the smaller ones who are doing it for the first time. And the reason that I think 30 days is still feasible is because we have seen a really high response rate in our survey. It's one of those things that good design, good user experience can have a huge impact on how people want to respond. And that's why I get so pumped. I get so excited about this feature, because we want to give you that data as quickly as we can and help you maintain the positive relationships that you have with your suppliers. So I want to do an extra shout out. We published a piece on our insights page just a few days ago around network accounts, which is the exact supplier experience. So if you want to learn more, that's a great insights post, and I would really encourage you to check it out and find our webinar from September.
Thank you, Taylor. I'm conscious we have a couple of minutes left. We will squeeze in another question or two if we can, and then, as I say, we will address any others at the after the webinar. One I want to address now, and I'll come to you, Dimitri, is when changing method, if you start with spend data and then go to activity data, how do you account for the change of methodology from one year to the next, as the data might not be good for comparison? Are you recalculating for all your clients' past or baseline years?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think very important also to answer. First of all, carbon accounting is not like you do once and you do perfect, right? You can always increase granularity of your data. You can always make improvements. You can support your suppliers to improve, right? So in a way, you always want to have that problem in a way. So here's all about how you communicate this and how you tell the story afterwards. But outside of that, we can also do, if we want to be able to compare, we can also do historic data if that's something people are interested to be able to compare this. We have different emission intensities in order to compare like apples with apples, like based on full-time employee, for example, just to be able to compare those type of situations. But overall, I would say is carbon accounting is not just do once and that's it. You aim to improve this because as a result of that, and especially during the net zero and the reductions, that's what we can be able to increase efficiency and all the other benefits that we see from all our clients through that exercise of getting more granular data, because it's all about the data and how it can empower you afterwards to take data-driven decisions to increase the efficiency of your operations as a result of the benefits we have said throughout this webinar.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dimitri. And that does take us up to time now. So I know there are several more questions in the chat. Don't worry, we are not ignoring them. We will go through those all with our team after this webinar and try and get back to all of you with responses on all of that. So thank you for being so engaged and for asking so many fantastic questions. And we'll get back to you on those we haven't addressed. As a reminder, the recording of this webinar will be sent to you after the session. So if you could also just hang on for 1 minute when we close this webinar and add some feedback to our short feedback form, that would be hugely appreciated so we can optimize these and make sure we're delivering the best insights for you in these webinars going forward. So thank you all very much for joining and for your engagement. We hope this has been helpful for you and really looking forward to supporting you on your reporting journey. So have a good rest of the week and thank you again.